Yeah, good morning in Germany and Europe, and good afternoon in Hong Kong and in overall Asia. You are most welcome to our last webinar in this year. Our topic is, as you of course know, the financial centers of Hong Kong and Frankfurt, and we have two distinguished speakers here. Dr. King Lung Au, he is the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Financial Service Development Council, and Mr. Andreas Glänzel, he is the Managing Director of Frankfurt Main Finance. The topic, of course, is the core of the topic is, of course, get an idea about the development of the financial center of Hong Kong. We had a long time talked about that. You know, compared to mainland China, Hong Kong is a special one. For example, you have no capital controls there, and also is a large offshore market for the renminbi, and also there is a stock connect between Hong Kong and Shanghai. So there's a lot of business in the financial market there, and we will hear this from Dr. Au in a second. And of course, we want also see what is the development of the financial center Frankfurt, and Mr. Glänzel will give us an idea of that. And we are looking to see whether there is some cooperation possibility or already cooperations underway. You know all the procedure from our last webinars. After I'm here together with my colleague, Professor von Rosen, in the board of the Sino-German Center. We both will moderate this session here. Mr. von Rosen will later introduce the speakers before hand over to the speakers themselves. And after the introductory statements, we have a Q&A session moderated again by the two of us. And we stop this then at latest at 12 o'clock. Please notice we will record the introductory statement, but not the Q&A session. We have also probably some press attendance here. Yeah, having said that, so far, I hand over to Rüdiger, so please.
Thanks, Horst. We are very glad to have Dr. Au with us. He is, as was said, Executive Director of Financial Service Development in Hong Kong. He joined the FSDC 3 years ago after 3 decades, quite a long time, of experience in asset management. Dr. Au was named CEO of the Year in Hong Kong by Asia Asset Management in 2012 and 2014. He was awarded the Medal of Honor of the government in Hong Kong in 2008, etc., etc. So he has an extreme interesting career. He received his BA in physics from the University of Oxford and the PhD in theoretical particle physics from the University of Durham. So physics is the base for a good career in asset management. Dr. Au, we are extremely glad to have you. Please go ahead.
My honor. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to share our views on Hong Kong as a financial center. Let me bring up my slides. I hope you can all see it. Can you all see it?
Yes.
All right. Okay, good. So let me briefly introduce who we are. The council was first set up by the government exactly 10 years ago. We have 3 objectives. That's very simple: policy research, market promotion, and talent development. So we actually is a cross-sectorial think tank. So over the past 10 years, we published 59 papers with more than 200 recommendations. The latest adoption rate, or we would like to call it the success rate, because the government measures how many recommendations of ours have been adopted by them. The latest is 66%. It used to be as high as 80%, but now we're publishing on average 6 to 8 papers with 30 recommendations a year. So it's a lot for the government to digest. But what I really want to share with you is the outlook for Hong Kong as an international financial center. It's very different from what you know about Hong Kong over the past 3 decades. Professor Van Rosen kindly mentioned, I've been in the asset management industry for 30 years. So I really benefit from the boom of Hong Kong as a fundraising hub for mainland companies over the past decade. But we have a very different roadmap going forward. I'll try to share that with you in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Well, first of all, let's take stock of where we are. by looking at a lot of these statistics and ranking. Obviously, these rankings are very important, but they may not be forward-looking and might not be comprehensive enough. And I'll try to convince you why I say that. Well, first of all, let's look at connect schemes. Hong Kong has been famous as a super connector between mainland China and the rest of the world through various connect schemes, highlighting the strength of Hong Kong having this one country, two systems. That means we don't have capital control, as I alluded to earlier. We adopt common law. We have a very well-established international financial ecosystem. But what I want to bring out is the sudden change in status since last year. You can see this map or this graph. Various schemes, connect schemes, have been introduced since 2002. But you can see the gap. We have to wait 1 or 2 years in between schemes, sometimes as long as 4 years, like Bond Connect to Wealth Management Connect between 2017 and 2021. But President Xi came down to Hong Kong on 1st of July last year. He made a statement that everyone must have read about. The one country, two system is good for the nation, is here to stay for the long term. This has reinforced the special status of Hong Kong. And right after that, we have so many initiatives being launched, enhancing the connector status of Hong Kong. Just name a few, right? We already have the ETF Connect with the Swap Connect, which is the very first scheme that allows onshore derivatives to be assessed by overseas investors, including investors in Hong Kong. And more than that, we have an expansion of Southbound Connect. What it means is that international companies can now get a primary listing in Hong Kong. You can have dual primary listings if you want to. So you can have a primary listing in Hong Kong and tap into the huge saving pool of mainland China. Just to give you an idea how big that saving pool is, it's roughly 1.6 to 1.8 times of US GDP. We're looking at 38 trillion US dollars just in cash within the banking system, right? Not counting assets. So that's how big the pool is, right? And there are other schemes that I'll mention, connecting as an ex-fund manager, that really gets me excited, is connecting private capital. I'll come back to this important point. Now, another growth engine for Hong Kong is the Greater Bay Area. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this acronym GBA, but what does GBA stand? What are the opportunities? Well, GBA, as the graph highlights, connecting 9 mainland cities in Guangdong and Macau, counting Hong Kong. But really, if you look at the size of opportunities, in terms of population, it's almost 90 million. In terms of GDP, same size as Canada, bigger than South Korea. But if you look at the GDP per capita, it's half of that of Canada. So you can imagine the potential. But it is complex because unlike other Bay Area, it's not an extension of a center. It's really a combination of 11 different cities with 3 different judicial systems. So that's why it has been so complex. It's taken so long to implement the schemes. Now, I'm not going to go through this slide, but it does highlight the importance of GBA in the role of Hong Kong in this transformational change. Because for GBA, we have the critical mass, we have the most important, the resources in terms of land, in terms of material, in terms of talent. And the goals are very ambitious. Building, innovative technology hub of global standard. But to Hong Kong, it solves 2 fundamental problems that a lot of Asian cities, as financial cities, have. Limited land supply, limited talent pool. But now with the Greater Bay Area, with this 1-hour living circle concept, I can now travel from where I am now to Shenzhen across the boundary in 13 minutes, 1-3, by high-speed train. And that means we can solve this housing problem long term in Hong Kong. The other is talent pool. The government has been acquiring talent from overseas. We were expecting just a few thousand. The scheme was launched last year. You know how many applicants we had? 160,000. How many was successful? 70,000. Far greater than our expectation. A lot of those are from the mainland, especially in the GBA area, but also talents from Europe as well. I'll tell you again, hopefully, why we can attract so many talents in such a short space of time. Remember, it was only introduced last December. Because we have 4 new growth engines, at least, on the back of the GBA. First of all, asset and wealth management. We have, I'm sure you know, Hong Kong is famous for that. In fact, I have a tie on because we just launched a new academy called the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy to develop the family office ecosystem. If you look at our market, when I talk about international financial center, in my mind, we need to have breadth of product, depth of liquidity, and talent. Private equity market, where this second largest in Asia outside of China, multiple bigger than others in the region. You look at the number of hedge funds, again, multiple larger than others, even larger than the whole region added together, outside of China, of course. And there are a lot of numbers here. I just want to bring out 2 important points. In terms of asset under management, it's $4 trillion. But in terms of projection, the various forecasts making Hong Kong the largest asset management hub, bigger than Switzerland in maybe 5 years' time. Maybe some projections even shorter by 2027. But if you look at the clientele, actually, more than 60% of our clients are from overseas. Now, why do we want to develop a family office in Hong Kong? People talk about geopolitics, but that's hot air because in the group, these wealthy families don't put all eggs in one basket. What we really want to do is to have the management hub, decision center in Hong Kong, bringing in private capital, helping Hong Kong to do the transformation into a technology hub, into a green tech hub. And that brings me to another growth engine of Hong Kong, Green Finance Center. Well, we all know China, being the factory of the world, is also the biggest carbon emission polluter. But that also means opportunities for Hong Kong. We already account for 35% of Asian green bond issuance and sustainable bond issuance in Asia, again, outside of China, because they've got a different system. There are lots of numbers here I'm not going to go through, but I hope that has highlighted how important now Hong Kong is, or green finance to Hong Kong is. Right. The other exciting opportunity is Carbon Connect. This is a project that we are embarking on, looking at ways to connect the domestic mainland voluntary carbon market with the rest of the world, with Europe as the prime target, because you have the most developed market, and yet the most expensive, and China being the cheapest, but with the largest volume by far. So there's an opportunity there. And in fact, it just finished the review of the voluntary carbon credit market. So they're going to do you'll be doing a relaunching. Hong Kong Exchange already has a core climate, but we want to go well beyond that to connect the two, the mainland market with the rest of the world. So watch this space. Now, another key new growth engine for Hong Kong is being a digital asset hub. We have to take credit for this because we really lobbied the government and regulators a couple of years ago, telling them that Hong Kong, you know what, at the time, had the largest crypto trading volume in the world. FTX was actually founded in Hong Kong, right? But so, if something were to go wrong and it was not regulated, guess what? The government would get blamed. But at least if it is regulated, everything is in the open. you know who, at least it is within monitoring. And now we have never looked vaccines because the government has come up with a very holistic approach to develop Hong Kong into a digital asset hub. It's not a crypto asset hub, I have to emphasize. Crypto, it's just a way of retaining talents initially, but now we have our own ecosystem. This is a snapshot of all the building blocks in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong government is still the first government to issue tokenized green bond in the world. It was issued in early February this year, January this year. Yeah, and then we have very holistic regulatory license for virtual asset trading platforms, for tokenized real asset tokenized projects. And government is going to introduce stablecoin regulation very soon. And we are going to have e-Hong Kong dollar next year. And it's not just about the technology, but it's really how to apply Web3 into the real economy. So the government has put money, behind their words. 50 million to set up a Web3 ecosystem. These are Hong Kong dollar and task force, as well as a special team for under Cyberport, which is an incubation center for fintech. Now, this is putting everything together. We have the talent, we have private capital, hopefully from wealthy families and individuals, coupled with support from the government, right, to transform Hong Kong into a global innovation hub. Already, we have done a lot since 2017. The number of fintech companies in Hong Kong now is 1,000. This is outdated. And guess what? It's very international. 25% of these startups are founded by overseas experts, not locals. And by the way, we gave birth to 18 unicorns in Hong Kong. Right? And in terms of sectors, it's very broad. Web3, payment, wealth tech, reg tech, insure tech, they're all key developments for Hong Kong. And again, government is putting money into these projects by providing various subsidies and incentive schemes. And even more importantly, promoting cross-boundary data flow. This is an extension of a super connected status from conventional finance into digital economy, because data means everything in the new digital economy. Right? I mentioned about talent. Again, these figures already are outdated. 60,000 was up to end of September. I just learned yesterday that now the number has gone to 70,000. New talents already arrived. Getting approved visa. Actually arrived at Hong Kong already. So you can see the magnet of attraction that we can offer now is very different from what you know about Hong Kong from the past 30 years. So it's no longer just a fundraising hub for mainland companies. It's a fundraising hub, a capital formation hub for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. This was a very interesting inside view on Hong Kong, and it shows a bright future, Dr. Au. So I promise from my side that in 10 years, you will show us how Hong Kong has developed already and actually within these years. We move over immediately to spare time to our next speaker, Mr. Glänzel. He started his career as tradition in Germany with an apprenticeship. He started at Deutsche Bank and moved back after his MBA to Deutsche Bank and serving as head of marketing for the bank's retail division in the headquarters in Frankfurt. Afterwards, he joined the financial communication agency Newmark as a managing partner, and until today gives communication advice on a paid basis, of course, to banks and asset managers. In addition, he is managing director of Frankfurt Main Finance, and we invite him for this very important institution for Frankfurt, combining all the financial interests, and the spokesman of the working group of German financial centers. He teaches, besides this, as guest lecturer at the International School of Management in Frankfurt. So, Andreas, the floor is yours.
Yes, Rüdiger, thank you very much for the warm introduction, and welcome from my side, from the Financial Center. Special welcome, of course, to our guests from China, and I see that we have a lot of Chinese guests here in this today. I would like to use the time in order to give you a brief introduction of Frankfurt Main Finance. I hope it's not too much of repetition for the locals, and I would like to present some selected figures to give you an idea about the size of the financial center, and the third part is dedicated to the a close look at the current topics that we're dealing with. And you will see that we have a lot of parallels between Frankfurt and Hong Kong, not in terms of size, but in terms of topic. Let me just start, and I hope that you can all see the slides. Just a brief repetition of what is Frankfurt Main Finance. We were founded in 2008, and you know that this was about the start of the financial crisis. So what was needed at that time was a voice of the financial center of Frankfurt. And this is what Frankfurt Main Finance did. Now, we started off with like 7 or 8 members. Now it is almost 80, it's around 75. Including the state of Hesse, the cities of Frankfurt, and the neighboring cities of Eschborn and Offenbach. But also we have a lot of banks, asset managers, tax advisors, consultants, and so on. Whoever has an interest in the financial center Frankfurt is very welcome in our organization. What we do is, of course, we promote the financial center, we market the location, and we are always eager to create a top-class dialogue on our platforms. This is a brief look at who's on our board today. So we have very well-known and very well reputed people in the board, and headed by the honorary president, Dr. Lutz Rettich, who was one of the founders of Frankfurt Main Finance in 2008. What we're doing is we have different type of memberships. As you see, we also have a special membership for fintechs, because these companies need special attention. What we do is we try to establish contacts in the financial and also in the political world, although we are not too heavy into political arguments. But what we do is we try to initiate business with other financial centers. We, of course, do some events. We have a very good network, as well national as international. We are running all these platforms that I've been speaking about briefly. And the idea actually is to promote Frankfurt as a financial center. So far for the introduction on Frankfurt Main Finance, and usually now we start like this 3-hour speech on the destination of choice after Brexit. I cut this down to a few minutes, which means that I will basically focus on the first part of my slides here, so I don't go into deep, although as King already mentioned, the talent part is extremely important, and maybe we have an opportunity to talk about this later on. But I will basically stick to the topic of the top financial center, which I already mentioned. I'm citing the same Global Financial Centers Index that King already mentioned. Frankfurt is number 14, which is very fine, and we consider ourselves to be the #1 financial center in the Eurozone. So we are ahead of Paris, just as an example. We're ahead of Luxembourg and Zurich, and the only apart from London, the only European city ahead is Geneva, who really jumped 13 places in the latest index. So this is something that came out a few weeks ago. So Frankfurt is ranked 14th in this index. Yeah, a few numbers I promised. We have 2.1 trillion euros on the balance sheets. We have about 80,000 people employed in the financial sector. This number varies depending on whether you count the ECB employees as well, who are normally not in German statistics, but of course there are like 4,000 to 5,000 people working at the ECB in Frankfurt, which we consider to be part of this. We have about 248 banks and credit institutions, of which 201 are from foreign banks and representative offices. As I said, these figures are slightly vary depending on whether you talk to the Association of Foreign Banks or whether you use the Helaba survey, but this is the amount of people that we're having. So this also shows how much the number is that King said when they say they have 60,000 talents, you know, with visa coming into the Greater Bay Area. So if you consider this in how many people are employed in the financial sector here in Frankfurt. We consider ourselves to be in the center of Europe just for several reasons. One of this is that we are part of or that we took a leading role in the development of the single euro payments area. Since then, banks have a most stable, efficient, and cost-effective clearing and settlement system in Europe. Just the dark green is the countries that are already onboarded in the system. What Frankfurt is probably famous for is that we have a lot of regulatory authorities on board. It starts with the European Central Bank, of course, but also with EIOPA, who is looking at the insurances. We have the FMSA, of course, the German BaFin. Very interesting interview today with German BaFin representatives and Mr. Branson in the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung, recommended to read. We have the Global Legal Entity Identifier, we have the European Systemic Risk Board, and of course the Bundesbank is located in Frankfurt as well. So we see ourselves in a good neighborhood here, and of course I could use some more. I will talk about the ISSB, the International Sustainability Standards Board, a little later, and I will also briefly touch the topic of the AMLA, the Anti-Money Laundering Authority. So there's probably more authorities to come. When it comes to Brexit, and I said my presentation was named first choice after Brexit, sorry, that you can see that a lot of institutions have already decided to set a branch or a head office in Frankfurt. We have the information that at BaFin they have around 60 new licenses after the Brexit. So they need, you know, the background about the EU passporting. So I've just mentioned a few that have come and decided to be in Frankfurt since Brexit. As I said, 60 is the number in total. When it comes to foreign banks, everybody is very welcome, and I think this is also reflected in the numbers by the Association of Foreign Banks. So it's about, depending on around, the number is around 200, but of course belonging to the different KWG paragraphs. Then we can also look at other financial institutions, domestic branches of asset management, financial services, payments institutions, and so on. I don't want to bother you too much with statistics, but you can see that not only on the German level, but also on the European level, there is definitely an accumulation of these kinds of institutes here in the Frankfurt Main area. The number that is quite impressive from our point of view is the number of total assets in Germany. The latest I have found on Statista, which says that the German banking industry reported 10.58 trillion euros in total assets in 2022, up over 800 million euros, and this is almost an all-time high, at least during this period since 2000. Another point, another number I would like to mention is the increase of the loans to non-banks by foreign banks, which is on the rise since 2013. Unfortunately, my figures stops at 2021, so maybe we can also find an update on 2022, but I'm pretty confident that this trend has been going on like this. Where do these foreign banks in Germany come from? Quite interesting to see, as you also mentioned, the fintechs in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, there were on your list, King, there were no German fintech, so there is probably a lack of German fintechs in Hong Kong. Something we should talk about how to change this. You know, we want to be on your list definitely. As you say here, origin of foreign banks in Frankfurt. You can see that Frankfurt is really an international city. I think we are well known also in Germany to have a very good welcoming culture, and that the importance to have a subsidiary or some kind of branch here in Frankfurt is seen by a lot of international banks also. We have strong balance sheets of foreign banks in Frankfurt. I don't want to go into deep into this, but you see that all these international banks have a major stake here in the German market. Last but not least, in this area, I would like to mention the Deutsche Börse Group, who is located here in Frankfurt, in Eschborn. And of course, their importance is increasing also after Brexit, especially if you look at the derivatives trading. And I think that the Deutsche Börse is definitely on the rise. And as you might know, they are not only working in classical capital market services, but they have a lot of other areas that they are working on. Tokenization is just one of those to mention. But of course, when it comes to liquidity, the Deutsche Börse is the place to go to. Yeah, this is actually here is another chart on the clearing, which is still on the way. As you know, there is a long-term process how to proceed with the euro clearing, derivatives clearing. So I think there is more business to come for Deutsche Börse probably. Yeah, this is a brief look at the size and the characteristics of the financial center. And to close my small report, I would like to mention the focus topics that we had been working on in 2023 and that we will be working on 2024. So first of all is the ISSB that I have mentioned. It has been already in 2021 that the ISSB decided to have the headquarters here in Frankfurt. Why is it? Because I said that because our application was most convincing. And what made the application most convincing? Well, we managed to have 180 well-known organizations supporting it. We had people from the political area, we had the real economy, and we had all the financial economy, and everybody was supporting it. When you have a look at this application at that time, still Angela Merkel was a chancellor and she had supported it. Olaf Scholz at that time was finance minister and had supported it. And we had a lot of support also from the governments in Wiesbaden, and of course from the city of London, of Frankfurt. And that's why this application was so successful. Now, like almost 3 years later, the International Sustainability Standards Board has presented first reports. There have been a lot of discussions, but you can see that the pace is very fast, and that the presentation of these reporting standards is going very well. Next steps also will be the alignment. So as you know, this is not the only one who is working on these kind of standards. EFRAG is just another one to mention, but the ISSB is a global organization, so they will consider the US as well as Asian approaches in this area. And we are very confident that the support of the ISSB for the Financial Center Frankfurt will go on in the future. This, of course, is part of our working on the transition to a nature-positive economy. So positioning Frankfurt as a green financial center is key. And also, King, you mentioned this. As I said, there's a parallel in topics, and this is one of this. So the idea is that Frankfurt is basically strong in three things. First of all, Frankfurt connects. So we are the transmission belt for the German and European economy. And this is not only a local or a regional thing, this is going to be national or even international, with being strong as a partner for the small and medium enterprises in Germany, which are often considered as the backbone of the German economy. At the same time, we are still good in export figures looking fine. So there's a lot of technology export in this area also from Germany. Second thing is that we consider Frankfurt to be a transformer. What does this mean? This means that we develop the expertise, standards, and the products used for transformation. And sustainable transformation is really key. This is ESG is important for everybody, and the E is something most of our organizations are working on, and supporting this transformation and financing this transformation is, of course, important for the financial center. And last but not least, it's the fact that Frankfurt impacts. So we are committed to make a difference, which is not always easy to prove. You know, finding the right figures, finding the right numbers, bringing out the right KPIs is really a hard thing to do. So this is something that we are heavily working on in Frankfurt to have a reporting on this and to be more precise and to deliver really quantitative figures. We're working on a sustainability index, just to mention, with academic institutions, and I think that we are able to deliver in the midst of 2024 in this area. Digitization is something that you have mentioned. The fintech, you said it's going to be digital innovation. This is definitely driving Frankfurt. Unfortunately, in the index on the fintechs, we are not as far ahead as in the Global Financial Centers Index. So there is still some things to do. We are going to arrange for a lot of events in the next year. There will be a Cybers in 2025 in Frankfurt, which will also boost the technology image probably of the city. So there's a lot to do when it comes to digitization. We have strong partners. We have the Tech Quartier, which is the FinTech hub in Frankfurt, and we also have the Frankfurt School Blockchain Center, which is well known and very well reputed, not only in Frankfurt. Coming to an end, of course, I would like to mention the Anti-Money Laundering Authority. You know that the EU is setting up this organization and that Frankfurt has handed in the application, also heavily supported by the government in Berlin as well as in Wiesbaden. We have had a presentation just recently in Brussels, because this is going to be decided by EU members, and but we are we are confident that we will have a very good chance that the Anti-Money Laundering Authority will be aligned with the other regulatory institutions that I've already mentioned. We know that some of those have already stated that it would be extremely helpful if we have short ways and shortcuts here between these regulatory institutions, and that the AMLA would be very welcome in Frankfurt. Last but not least, Brexit is still alive, actually. So although it is not the major topic in the financial magazines these days, I think we did very well. I mentioned that we have like 60 new banks coming to Frankfurt. We have been working on this, building the new bridge to Frankfurt. This was our idea, and this is what we still do today. So, but on the other hand, we know that it is still, the race is on. So there is still a lot of banks that are going to decide where to be on the long term. So hopefully we we are looking forward that they can decide for Frankfurt as well. Yeah, that's all there is from my side to give you an idea. As I said, I saw a lot of parallels with King, and this also gives a lot of opportunities to work on together.